Hey, what's going on, DDO players? Axel here. Today we're going to talk about Ravenloft and what I expect from Ravenloft and what I want to see and what I think we will end up seeing. So, for those of you who aren't aware, DDO is expected to release its third expansion, Ravenloft, sometime later this year. We don't have an exact release date, probably not anywhere close. I would expect it, if I had to guess, the end of 2017. Ravenloft has been heavily requested, as far as I'm aware, by players, and it's a very popular pen and paper campaign setting. So let's go ahead and talk about what I think we're going to see. But before we can do that, we need to look at past expansions and use those as a comparison. So let's look at Menace of the Underdark, the first expansion that DDO had many years ago now. It seems like it was yesterday, but it's been quite a while. Menace of the Underdark was, I would say, the biggest undertaking DDO has ever seen. It was the biggest of the two expansions we've seen so far, and it presented tons of high quality content, tons of new content, tons of quests, a new raid, tons of new adventure areas, new public areas, a lot of fun stuff, and was an expansion that kept us busy for quite a while. The next one, Shadowfell, we got a few adventure areas, some huge adventure areas like the Stormhorns, which was one of the biggest and beautiful, in my opinion, the most beautiful adventure area and the best, most well done adventure area in DDO. We saw a few quest packs, unfortunately no raid with this expansion, but we saw a few quest packs which I think were a lot of fun. I really enjoyed the Stormhorns. Shadowfell not as much, but it was still a decent pack. So what do I think we're going to see in comparison to these? Do I think we're going to see something similar to this with the expansion this year? Because one thing you have to know about DDO is it's changed quite a bit since that time. DDO is a much older game these days. It's over 10 years old now. Back in the Menace of the Underdark era, DDO was kind of hitting its prime in terms of popularity, at least it seems like to me. I would have to check the statistics on that, maybe at the DDO Oracle. But it seems at that time DDO was kind of hitting its popularity, and now DDO is kind of fallen down in popularity. Just not because it's gotten worse, just because it's gotten to be quite an old game. 10 plus years is very old in today's gaming, by today's gaming standards. So DDO doesn't have the same resources. The game is no longer run by Turbine. It's moved to an independent game studio named Standing Stone Games. So we can presume, although they're a private company and we don't know exactly what resources they have, we can assume they probably have less resources these days. And we know, coming down from the Turbine years, they saw quite a few cuts of staff. So I think it's reasonable to expect that with this expansion, we can't expect to go what we saw with Menace of the Underdark, and that's fine. I understand where the game is at. I understand the state of the game. I understand the level of the staff. I understand that now that they're working as an independent game studio, they probably don't have the financial backing that, say, Turbine did with Menace of the Underdark, where they could hire a bunch of staff to temporarily work and get this content out. So I think it's fair to expect less content, and that's fine. So what do I want to see? One thing we have to be sure of is that this expansion feels like an expansion. That's one thing I want and expect from it. If they're going to label it as an expansion and sell it separately as an expansion that will not be accessible to VIPs without them also paying for the expansion, then I expect to get my money's worth. I want to see a minimum of, say, 8 quests, maybe 2 different adventure packs with 3 quests each with a capstone quest, and perhaps when both of those capstone quests in both of the 2 packs are completed, once all 8 quests are run, you maybe at that point you're flagged for a new raid. I would like to see 2 new raids, but I think at least 1 new raid is required. I think looking back at the Shadowfell expansion, one thing that made that expansion not as popular as Menace of the Underdark is that it did not have a raid. I think that an expansion needs to have a raid to feel complete. There's something about running a raid that makes a piece of content feel complete. There's a lot of raids in this game that are essentially capstones to larger quest series. Say Menace of the Underdark with Caught in the Web, or say in Giant Hold, the Giant Hold raids. Now, of course, in the expansion, I don't think we can just have content. There needs to be a few other things. I think it's unlikely, but I would like to see an adventure area. I know that adventure areas is one thing that the staff at DDO seems to have gone away with and away from in recent years, just because players seem to not want that as much as new content, and with a limited number of staff, a limited number of man hours, they have to pick their priorities. But that being said, I think there's something about an adventure area that makes you feel immersed in the content, and I think something about an adventure area would make you feel immersed in the Ravenloft experience. So I would like to see an adventure area. Granted, I don't expect one, but I would like to see one. It would be a very nice surprise. Now, being a new piece of content with a raid, that we can presume there will be a raid. I hope there will be a raid in this expansion. You can expect to see some sort of grinding system to incentivize multiple runs of the content. So some type of crafting system will probably happen. I know there's been a lot of people complaining in recent years of crafting system overload, but there probably needs to be some kind of mechanic here to incentivize multiple runs. Now, I personally would like to see more of a luck-based something more luck based instead of grind based, so that when I run a quest or raid, I feel like every time I'm in it, I have a chance to pull something amazing instead of knowing that I'm, say, 20 runs away. So I would like to see more of a luck based system, but maybe you're more your more everyday players would like to see more of a grind-based system to make sure that they are guaranteed to get that loot after X number of runs. But either way, I think we need to see, for sure, need to see something that incentivizes running the content. And I think since it's an expansion and this is a special case, I think there needs to be a solid amount of power creep. Now, I don't want the power creep in terms of the items to completely overshadow everything in the game, but it needs to be special because it is an expansion. Now let's talk about incentives to buy the expansion. Buying an expansion, we can expect it to be somewhat of an expensive thing. I would expect the expansion to be something around maybe $50. Just going back and thinking about how much Menace of the Underdark cost back in the day, and I want my money to feel like it's worth it. So what do I want to see to incentivize buying the expansion? Now, of course, I don't want any kind of pay to win, you might label it, mechanic built in there to where there's exclusive power items. I don't like that at all, but I would like to see some really nice convenience items and some really nice cosmetics thrown in there as an incentive to buy the content. Something like, say, a teleport clicky would be really nice. Maybe a greater teleport clicky would be really nice. Maybe something like cosmetics. I know a lot of players don't like cosmetics, but a lot do. And looking at how many cosmetics they've added to the store in the form of pets and other things, you can imagine that a lot of players, especially in a role-playing game, a game that's so immersed, the culture is so immersed in role-playing from a game that comes from pen and paper D&D, a lot of players do love their cosmetics. So I would like to see some kind of exclusive cosmetics to people who do pre-order, because I want to pre-order. Like, I want to support this game. I want to be given reasons to spend money on this game, and I'll gladly throw my money out for an expansion in order to support this game, because this is a game I've really liked for a long time. Look, I've made hundreds of YouTube videos about this game. Obviously, I like it a lot. So I want a reason to support it, and I want to support it. I just want to be sure that I'm given something I want in exchange for my money. So to summarize, what do I want to see? 2 adventure packs of 4 quests each, 2 raids, an adventure area, and a public area. What do I think we'll see? Somewhere between 6 and 8 quests, 1 raid, no adventure area, and a public area. So guys, please comment below. Let me know what you want to see. What amount of content do they need to offer you? What incentives do they need to offer you in order for you to throw down your money for this thing? I'd be interested in reading that. So guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. I will see you next time. You all have a good one. Take care.